The credit card statements spread across my kitchen table told a story of systematic theft disguised as family financial management, but according to my stepfather Marcus, the real story was about a spoiled 24-year-old who had gotten lucky in business and needed to learn responsibility by paying for everyone else's mistakes. His voice carried the particular blend of resentment and entitlement that had become our family's soundtrack over the past year. "Sophia, your luck doesn't make you special," Marcus shouted, waving a credit card statement that showed $8,700 in charges I'd never made. "These are family debts and family takes care of family. Stop acting like you're too good to help the people who raised you." I sat quietly at the table, photographing each statement with my phone while he delivered his monthly lecture about luck, responsibility, and family obligation. The charges included his motorcycle payments, mom's spa treatments, and my half-sister Amber's college expenses, all funded by credit cards in my name that I'd never applied for or authorized. "Lucky people don't get to be selfish," he continued, his tone suggesting moral authority rather than criminal confession. "You happen to stumble into some business success, but that doesn't mean you forget where you came from or who supported you." Where I came from. According to Marcus's version of family history, I'd been a struggling college dropout who got lucky with a random business idea, rather than someone who'd spent 3 years building a digital marketing consultancy that now served Fortune 500 clients and generated over $400,000 annually. "These aren't my debts," I said carefully, maintaining the facade of confused compliance while documenting his response for the criminal case I'd been building for 6 months. "They're family debts." Marcus's voice pitched higher with indignation. "Your mother's medical expenses, Amber's education, my transportation costs for work. These are legitimate family responsibilities that you're trying to avoid because you got lucky with some computer stuff." "Computer stuff?" My digital marketing agency employed 8 people and had clients paying 6-figure contracts for strategic consulting, but in Marcus's worldview, any success I achieved was luck that should be shared with family members who had real careers and legitimate expenses. "Marcus, I never signed up for these credit cards," I said, knowing the admission would trigger another lecture about family loyalty and financial responsibility. "You didn't need to sign up for them. I'm your stepfather, your mother's husband, part of this family's financial management team. When family members need credit access, responsible family members provide it. Family financial management team." Marcus had appointed himself to manage finances he'd never earned, using credit in my name to fund lifestyle choices I'd never approved while treating me like the irresponsible family member who needed guidance about money. The doorbell rang, interrupting his lecture about my supposed financial obligations. Mom answered and returned with Amber, my 19-year-old half-sister whose college expenses had somehow become my responsibility despite her having 2 biological parents with their own incomes. "Sophia." Amber's voice carried the bright enthusiasm that preceded major financial demands. "I need to talk to you about next semester's expenses. The tuition went up and I want to study abroad in Italy." Study abroad in Italy. A $35,000 program that would be funded by credit cards in my name while my family treated my objections as evidence of selfishness about sharing my lucky business success. "How much is the Italy program?" I asked, already knowing the answer from the university materials I'd found in the trash. Materials addressed to me as the person responsible for Amber's educational financing. "Only $35,000, but it's an incredible opportunity for personal growth and career development," Amber replied with the casual entitlement of someone who had never questioned where money came from or whether requests were reasonable. "That's a significant amount." "Sophia, don't be cheap about Amber's education," Marcus interjected with his characteristic dismissal of my financial autonomy. "Your lucky business success should benefit the whole family, especially Amber's future." My lucky business success that should benefit everyone except me, funding other people's dreams while I was lectured about sharing wealth I'd earned through skills they didn't understand or respect. My phone buzzed with a text from my attorney, James Patterson, who specialized in identity theft and financial fraud. "Sophia, District Attorney's Office approved prosecution. Criminal charges filed for identity theft, credit card fraud, and financial elder abuse. Arrest warrants issued. Are you ready for execution? James." 6 months of documentation had revealed that my family's treatment of my business success as their personal resource was actually systematic financial fraud involving identity theft, unauthorized credit applications, and coordinated exploitation that met federal criteria for organized crime. "I need to take this call," I said, stepping outside while Marcus continued lecturing Amber about my responsibility to fund her Italian adventure with money I'd earned through luck rather than skill. "James, what's the timeline for arrests?" "Tomorrow morning. We have enough evidence for federal charges including conspiracy, identity theft, credit card fraud, and racketeering. The total fraudulent charges exceed $127,000, which triggers serious federal penalties. $127,000. More than many people earned in 2 years, stolen through unauthorized credit applications while my family convinced themselves that my success was luck that should be shared rather than achievement that should be respected. What kind of sentences are we looking at? Your stepfather faces 8 to 12 years for organizing the fraud scheme. Your mother faces 4 to 6 years for participating in identity theft. Amber could face 2 to 4 years depending on her knowledge of the fraud." That evening, I sat in my apartment reviewing the evidence James had compiled for federal prosecution. The documentation was comprehensive and devastating. *23 unauthorized credit card applications using my identity. $127,000 in fraudulent charges over 18 months. Recorded conversations where Marcus discussed managing Sophia's resources. Email evidence showing coordination among family members. Financial records proving they'd been monitoring my business income. My family hadn't just been taking advantage of my generosity. They'd been running an organized identity theft operation while convincing themselves that my success was luck that should benefit everyone. The most damaging evidence was a recorded conversation between Marcus and Mom where they discussed my gullibility and concluded that I was too focused on business to pay attention to family finances, making me an ideal target for systematic exploitation. The next morning, I woke up to frantic calls from my entire family. The voicemails captured their encounter with federal law enforcement. Marcus's message, 7:45 a.m. "Sophia, FBI agents are here with arrest warrants for identity theft and fraud. They say we stole your identity to get credit cards. This has to be a mistake." Mom's message, 8:30 a.m. "Sweetheart, they arrested Marcus and they want to arrest me too. They have evidence that we used your information for credit cards. We thought you knew. Please call your lawyer." Amber's message, 10:15 a.m. "Sophia, how could you have us arrested? We're family. Mom's crying and Marcus is in jail. They say I might go to prison for using stolen credit cards. Why would you do this to us?" The progression from confusion to victim blaming was predictable. My family was discovering that their systematic exploitation of my lucky success was actually federal criminal activity that warranted serious prosecution. James called at noon with updates. "Sophia, the arrests went smoothly. Marcus is in federal custody charged with organized identity theft and fraud. Your mother is being processed for conspiracy and financial fraud. Amber is cooperating with investigators. What happens now?" Federal prosecution. "The evidence is overwhelming and they'll likely plea bargain to avoid lengthy trials. The restitution amount will include the fraudulent charges plus damages and legal costs." "How much total restitution?" "Approximately $200,000 including damages, interest and legal costs. They'll also face asset forfeiture to satisfy the judgment." That afternoon, I received a call from the federal prosecutor handling the case. "Ms. Rodriguez, this is Assistant U.S. Attorney Patricia Chen. Your case has become part of a broader investigation into family identity theft schemes. We believe your stepfather may be connected to a network that teaches families how to exploit successful children through financial fraud." "A network?" "We've identified similar patterns in 12 other cases where stepparents used identity theft to exploit stepchildren's business success while convincing the victims that sharing wealth was family responsibility. My family's treatment of my success as their personal resource wasn't unique. It was part of an organized criminal pattern that targeted successful young adults whose family relationships could be manipulated to prevent recognition of systematic theft." 3 months later, I sat in federal court as the prosecution revealed the full scope of what they termed the Marcus Patterson identity theft enterprise. The evidence showed that Marcus had been part of a network that taught stepparents how to exploit successful stepchildren through systematic financial fraud. "Your Honor," the federal prosecutor addressed the court, "the The defendant participated in a criminal organization that provided training and resources for exploiting stepchildren's financial success through identity theft disguised as family financial management. The trial revealed training materials Marcus had purchased, including courses on accessing adult stepchildren's credit, psychological manipulation for family financial control, and legal protection strategies for family resource management. Marcus hadn't just been stealing from me spontaneously. He'd been trained by criminals who specialized in teaching stepparents how to exploit their stepchildren's success while maintaining plausible deniability through family manipulation. Ms. Rodriguez, the prosecutor asked during my testimony, how did you feel when you discovered that your stepfather's exploitation wasn't opportunistic greed, but part of an organized criminal scheme he'd learned to implement? Like discovering that someone I trusted had been trained to view my success as a resource to be systematically stolen rather than an achievement to be respected. The criminal network prosecution resulted in significant sentences. Marcus received 10 years in federal prison for racketeering and organized identity theft. Mom received 5 years for conspiracy and systematic financial fraud. Amber received probation and community service for unknowingly using stolen credit. The civil judgment exceeded $300,000 including damages, interest and penalties. Their house was sold and all assets were seized to satisfy the judgment. But the most significant outcome was the federal task force established to investigate family identity theft networks. My case became the foundation for a nationwide crackdown on organized family financial fraud that had been targeting successful young adults for years. Sophia, Agent Maria Santos from the FBI Financial Crimes Division explained, your documentation helped us identify a criminal network that had been teaching stepparents to exploit their stepchildren for over 5 years. We've now arrested over 150 people nationwide who were using similar tactics. The investigation revealed that family identity theft had become an organized criminal enterprise, with training programs specifically designed to help stepparents exploit successful stepchildren while maintaining victim compliance through family manipulation. 5 years later, I received a letter from Marcus in federal prison. Unlike his previous manipulative communications, this letter demonstrated genuine understanding of the criminal behavior and why federal prosecution had been necessary. Sophia, I want you to know that federal prison counseling helped me understand that what I did wasn't family financial management. It was organized criminal activity designed to systematically steal your identity and financial resources. I wasn't just stealing money. I was part of a criminal network that specialized in teaching stepparents to exploit their stepchildren's success while convincing the victims that resistance was evidence of selfishness about family responsibility. The counselors here work with many people who exploited their stepchildren, and they've helped me understand that calling your success luck was actually a psychological manipulation technique designed to minimize your achievements while maximizing my access to money you earned through genuine skill and hard work. 8 years after the federal trial, I established the Rodriguez Foundation for Family Identity Theft Prevention, using my experience to help other victims of organized family financial fraud. The foundation has helped identify and prosecute over 300 family identity theft networks and recover more than $75 million in stolen assets. The business security strategies I'd developed to protect myself from family exploitation became the foundation for a consulting company specializing in protecting entrepreneurs from systematic family financial fraud. Secure Success now helps clients nationwide recognize and prevent identity theft schemes targeting successful family members. 10 years later, I attended the congressional hearing where the Rodriguez Family Identity Protection Act was signed into law, establishing federal frameworks for identifying and prosecuting organized family identity theft networks that target successful young adults. Ms. Rodriguez, the committee chair addressed me during the signing ceremony, your courage in prosecuting your own family exposed a criminal network that was stealing millions from successful young people nationwide. This legislation will protect future generations from organized family identity theft. 12 years after the original prosecution, I met with Mom following her release from federal prison. She'd completed extensive rehabilitation and had become a counselor specializing in helping families recognize and overcome financial exploitation patterns. Sophia, I want you to know that federal prison probably saved our family from escalating to even more serious crimes. The counseling showed us that we were part of a criminal organization that was training us to systematically steal your identity and financial resources. What did you learn? That calling your success luck was actually criminal methodology designed to minimize your achievements while maximizing our access to money you earned through genuine business skills. We weren't teaching family values. We were implementing criminal techniques that professional identity thieves had developed. The family that had once treated my business success as luck they were entitled to share had become advocates for preventing other families from falling into similar criminal exploitation networks. The most devastating discovery came during the expanded federal investigation, when cybersecurity experts uncovered the true scope of the criminal network's operations. What had appeared to be targeted family exploitation was actually part of a sophisticated national identity theft enterprise with international connections. Sophia, the investigation has uncovered something much larger than we initially realized. Agent Santos called to inform me. Your stepfather's network wasn't just teaching family exploitation. They were part of an organized crime syndicate that had been systematically targeting successful young entrepreneurs across multiple states. How extensive was the operation? We've identified over 2,000 victims nationwide. The criminal network had developed sophisticated methods for identifying successful young adults, infiltrating their families through marriage or relationships, and systematically stealing their identities while maintaining psychological control through family manipulation. The cybersecurity investigation revealed that Marcus had been part of a criminal organization that used dating apps and social media to target single parents with successful children. The criminals would initiate romantic relationships specifically to gain access to families with young entrepreneurs or high-earning professionals. They had detailed victim profiles, Sophia. Your success metrics, business growth patterns, even your personality traits were documented in their targeting database. Marcus didn't randomly meet your mother. He was assigned to your family as part of an organized criminal operation. The revelation was sickening. My mother's relationship with Marcus hadn't been organic. It was a criminal infiltration designed to provide access to my identity and financial resources. My family relationships had been manipulated by professional criminals who specialized in long-term financial exploitation. How long had they been planning this? The earliest documentation shows they identified you as a target 3 years before Marcus approached your mother. They studied your business development, analyzed your family relationships, and developed a comprehensive strategy for exploitation that included psychological manipulation, identity theft, and systematic financial extraction. 3 years of surveillance and planning before Marcus ever entered our lives. My family hadn't been targeted randomly. We'd been selected by professional criminals who had studied my business success and identified my mother as the optimal access point for systematic exploitation. The expanded investigation triggered international cooperation with law enforcement agencies in 12 countries. The criminal network had been operating globally, targeting successful young entrepreneurs through family infiltration schemes that generated hundreds of millions in stolen resources. Sophia, your case broke open one of the largest organized family exploitation networks in federal history. The total stolen amount across all victims exceeds $500 million. 1 year later, I testified before a joint congressional committee investigating international family exploitation networks. The hearing was broadcast nationally as lawmakers struggled to understand how organized crime had infiltrated American families on such a massive scale. Ms. Rodriguez, the committee chair addressed me, your courage in prosecuting this case exposed a criminal enterprise that had been operating undetected for over a decade. Can you explain how these criminals were able to maintain such sophisticated operations? They exploited the most fundamental trust relationships in society, I replied. By infiltrating families through romantic relationships, they gained access to victims who couldn't imagine that family members would systematically steal their identities and financial resources. What made this network particularly dangerous? They combined traditional organized crime methods with psychological manipulation techniques. Victims weren't just robbed, they were psychologically conditioned to believe that resistance to exploitation was evidence of moral failure or family disloyalty. The congressional investigation resulted in the most comprehensive anti-exploitation legislation in federal history. The International Family Financial Protection Act established global cooperation frameworks for identifying and prosecuting family infiltration schemes, with mandatory reporting requirements for financial institutions and enhanced penalties for organized family exploitation. 2 years after the congressional hearings, I received a letter from Marcus in federal supermax prison, where he was serving a 25-year sentence for his role as a regional coordinator in the international criminal network. Sophia, I want you to understand something that the federal counselors helped me realize. When I called your success luck, I wasn't just being dismissive. I was following specific psychological manipulation protocols that the criminal organization had developed. The training we received included detailed instructions for undermining victims' confidence in their own achievements. By characterizing your business success as luck, we were implementing a systematic psychological conditioning program designed to make you more compliant with financial exploitation. I wasn't just stealing your money. I was part of an international criminal organization that specialized in destroying successful young people's psychological autonomy while systematically stealing their identities and financial resources. 5 years after the international investigation, the Rodriguez Foundation had grown into a global organization working with law enforcement agencies in 47 countries to identify and prevent family infiltration schemes targeting successful young entrepreneurs. Sophia, Detective Inspector Sarah Matthews from Interpol explained during our annual coordination meeting, your case became the template for recognizing family infiltration patterns worldwide. We've now prevented an estimated 10,000 family exploitation schemes using the recognition criteria developed from your documentation. The Foundation's work had evolved beyond individual victim assistance to include international criminal intelligence sharing, preventive education programs, and legislative advocacy that had resulted in enhanced protections for entrepreneurs and business owners in countries across 6 continents. 8 years later, I attended the United Nations signing ceremony for the International Protocol on Family-Based Financial Exploitation, the first global treaty addressing organized family financial crimes. Representatives from 83 countries signed the agreement establishing worldwide standards for identifying, investigating, and prosecuting family infiltration schemes. Ms. Rodriguez, the UN Secretary-General addressed the Assembly, your case demonstrated that family financial exploitation is not a domestic issue. It's an international security threat that requires coordinated global response. This protocol will protect entrepreneurs and innovators worldwide from organized criminal networks that target success through family relationships. 10 years after the original prosecution, I published Stolen Trust: How International Crime Networks Infiltrate Families, a comprehensive analysis of family exploitation schemes that became required reading for law enforcement agencies worldwide. The book detailed the psychological manipulation techniques, criminal methodologies, and international coordination that made family infiltration such an effective criminal strategy. 12 years later, I met with Mom following her release from federal prison and completion of extensive psychological rehabilitation. She had become a leading expert in recognizing family infiltration schemes and worked with international law enforcement to identify criminal recruitment patterns. Sophia, I want you to know that federal prison counseling helped me understand that I wasn't just manipulated by Marcus. I was recruited by an international criminal organization that specialized in identifying and exploiting single parents with successful children. What did the counselors help you understand? That my relationship with Marcus was never real. From the first conversation, I was being manipulated by professional criminals who had studied our family for years and developed a comprehensive strategy for exploiting your success through psychological manipulation and identity theft. How do you feel about that now? Grateful that you prosecuted us before the criminal network escalated to even more serious crimes. The counselors showed us evidence that other families in similar situations had been destroyed completely. Victims who lost everything developed severe psychological trauma, or were driven to suicide by systematic exploitation that continued for decades. 15 years after the federal prosecution, the International Family Protection Institute I had established was operating in 67 countries, providing training for law enforcement, education for potential victims, and rehabilitation services for families affected by infiltration schemes. The business I had built that Marcus dismissed as luck had become the foundation for a global movement protecting entrepreneurs and innovators from systematic family exploitation. The success he had tried to steal had been transformed into resources that protected thousands of other successful young people from similar criminal victimization. Sometimes people who call your success luck, while systematically stealing your identity, are actually part of international criminal organizations that specialize in infiltrating families to exploit successful young entrepreneurs through sophisticated psychological manipulation and identity theft schemes that require global law enforcement cooperation to identify and stop. Sometimes family relationships that seem organic are actually criminal infiltrations designed by professional criminals who study successful individuals for years before implementing comprehensive exploitation strategies that combine identity theft, psychological manipulation, and systematic financial extraction. And sometimes the most important prosecution is the one that exposes not just individual criminal behavior, but international organized crime networks that have been systematically targeting successful young people worldwide through family infiltration schemes that require global treaties and international cooperation to prevent and prosecute effectively.